Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are two of the most well-known names in cinema history. They will forever be linked because of their shared love for martial arts, which forms a tight bond between them, even though they come from different parts of the globe.
Well, I think the main reason, Bruce was really ahead of his time. So he called me up and said, I want to do a movie with a fight scene that everyone will remember. Do I have to lose? He says, yeah. And he said, no, we'll make this a seesaw battle.
Their friendship was closer than that of brothers, and Bruce's early passing took its toll on Chuck. Years after Bruce's death, Chuck Norris finally breaks his silence on the untold story behind the tragic and mysterious death of the legend Bruce Lee. Join us as we delve into Chuck Norris's shocking truth, from friends to brothers. Once upon a time in the late 1960s, Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris were like shooting stars in martial arts and action movies. Lee was already famous in Hong Kong with his cool flicks like The Big Boss and Fist of Fury, while Norris was a karate champ, winning trophies left and right across the globe. Their paths first crossed at a big karate event in 1967. Norris strutted off with the trophy while Lee wowed the crowd with his moves. They hit it off right after, bonding over their love for fighting and martial arts. They decided to team up and train together in Lee's backyard. Always thirsty for new knowledge, Lee learned some cool tricks from Norris. Norris convinced Lee to kick higher, breaking Lee's belief that kicks should stay low. Lee soon saw the light, and within just 6 months, his kicks were as flashy and powerful as Norris's. Meanwhile, Norris was blown away by Lee's lightning speed, brute strength, and deep thoughts. He soaked up Lee's cool style of Kun Do, which was like nothing he'd ever seen. Kun Do, or the art of the quick punch, was Lee's brainchild. It wasn't just a set of moves, but a way of being in battle and everyday life. Kun Do was about keeping things simple, hitting straight, and breaking free from old-school martial arts. One super cool thing about Kun Do was its interception trick. This meant striking your opponent's strike before it got to you. It took serious smarts, speed, perfect timing, and the ability to switch gears on the fly. Kun Do folks are trained in all sorts of tricks: punches, kicks, elbows, knees, you name it. But Kun Do wasn't just about fighting, it was a whole lifestyle. It pushed folks to think big, stay loose, and get creative, all while digging deep into themselves. As Lee said, take what works, ditch what doesn't, and throw in your flavor. Norris was totally into Lee's vibe, drive, and fire. They were like a dynamic duo, sharing secrets and skills under the open sky. Then out of nowhere, he hits me up, Norris remembered. He's like, I've rocked 2 movies in Hong Kong, and they're killing it. He says, I'm itching to make a flick with a fight scene like never before, and I want you to be my rival. That call was the birth of Way of the Dragon, which Lee both wrote and directed in 1972. The movie was about Tang Lung, a young martial artist from Hong Kong who travels to Rome to help a friend's family business from a crime boss. The movie peaked with an epic showdown in the Colosseum between the main character, Tang, played by Bruce, and the crime boss's tough hired fighter, Colt, played by Norris. The Way of the Dragon rocked the box office, making over $130 million worldwide, even though it was made with only $130,000, making it 1,000 times more successful than its budget. It was the most popular film of 1972 in Hong Kong, and the most successful film ever made in Hong Kong until then. It also made waves in the United States, where it was called Return of the Dragon in 1974, becoming the first Hong Kong movie to rule the US box office. The movie is widely seen as one of the greatest martial arts films ever, and a perfect display of Lee's talent and charm as both a filmmaker and a star. It includes some of the coolest fight scenes in movie history, like the nunchaku duel, the alley fight, and the final battle with Norris. Indeed, Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee were more than friends. They were brothers bound by fists, blood, and theater. Bruce Lee's death. The next year, after the huge success Bruce and Chuck had gotten from Way of the Dragon, Bruce was back to work, developing a new project. And on May 10, 1973, while doing voice recordings for Enter the Dragon at the Orange Sky Golden Harvest Film Studio in Hong Kong, Lee suddenly collapsed. He was rushed to Hong Kong Baptist Hospital because he was having seizures and severe headaches. Doctors found out he had cerebral edema, which they managed to treat by giving him mannitol to reduce the swelling. Then, on Friday, July 20th, 1973, Lee had plans to dine with actor George Lazenby in Hong Kong, as they were considering working on a film together. That afternoon, Lee and producer Raymond Chow met at Lee's house to discuss a movie called Game of Death. They worked until 4 in the evening and then drove to the house of Betty Ting Pei, a fellow actor, to discuss the script. Afterwards, Chow left for a dinner meeting. Lee decided to take a nap, but when he didn't show up for dinner, Chow went to his apartment. Despite efforts to wake him, Lee wouldn't stir. A doctor was called, but Lee couldn't be revived despite trying for 10 minutes. He was rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital by ambulance but was pronounced dead upon arrival. He was only 32 years old. Lee was laid to rest at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle. On July 25, 1973, some of his closest friends, including Taki Kimura, Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Dan Inosanto, Peter Chin, and his brother Robert, served as pallbearers at his funeral. Cause of death. Lee's legendary status and sudden passing sparked numerous sensational rumors and theories. Donald Thierry, a respected forensic scientist, conducted an autopsy on Lee. He concluded that Lee's death was a result of death by misadventure, caused by swelling of the brain due to a reaction to the medication Equagesic. Lee had taken Equagesic, a mix of aspirin and a tranquilizer called meprobamate, on the day he died. Although he had taken it before without issue, this time it led to a significant increase in the size of his brain. Just foul play by the triads trying to cover up their involvement. The other theory that has gained traction is believing in a curse on the Lee family. After Bruce Lee's death, a string of unfortunate and mysterious events followed, including the tragic death of his son, Brandon Lee, who was fatally shot on the set of The Crow in 1993. There were also reports of individuals threatening Bruce Lee with meeting untimely ends. But where did this curse come from? And is there any proof behind it? The Lee family curse theory originates from Chinese legends and superstitions. According to some stories, the Lee family traces back to a renowned general named Li Yuan from the Tang dynasty. Despite being a valiant defender of the emperor, Li Yuan had many enemies, including a sorcerer who cursed his descendants to face numerous challenges and adversaries throughout their lives. Bruce Lee's parents, Lee Hoi Chun and Grace Ho, were deeply spiritual and superstitious, particularly after the death of Bruce's older brother, whose passing occurred before Bruce was born. Although the cause of his brother's demise remains unknown, some suspect it was linked to the curse. To safeguard Bruce from evil spirits, his parents nicknamed him Little Phoenix and dressed him in girls' clothing. Additionally, they pierced his ears, believing it would ward off the curse's effects. Bruce Lee once said he dreamed about his death, which he shared with his wife, Linda Lee. They also believed he was visited by a spooky spirit, seen in mirrors, and battled in movies like Enter the Dragon and Game of Death. Whether the curse is true or not, it's had a big impact on the Lee family for generations. Chuck Norris' shocking revelation. Chuck Norris shared his thoughts on Bruce Lee's death at a martial arts show during a San Diego Comic-Con event. Being friends with Lee, Norris knew much about his health and habits. He mentioned that Lee hurt his back by lifting heavy weights, which landed him in the hospital for 3 weeks. The doctor noticed Lee's fast metabolism and constant effort to get stronger. Norris explained that Lee ate a lot of protein, took supplements like ginseng and royal jelly, and drank tons of water every day, up to 10 liters, to cleanse his body. Norris described Lee as someone who always aimed for perfection in everything he did. While in Hong Kong, Lee got a bad headache and asked Betty Ting Pei for pain relief. Sadly, the medicine she gave him contained aspirin, which Lee was allergic to. Combined with his supplements and water intake, this caused cerebral edema, making his brain swell. Lee laid down on Betty's bed and never woke up. Cerebral edema can cause symptoms like headaches, dizziness, and confusion. Doctors diagnose it through exams and tests, such as CT scans and blood tests. Treatment depends on the cause and severity, ranging from medications to surgery. After Lee passed away, Norris spoke highly of him in interviews and writings. He saw Lee as an incredible person who changed martial arts and movies. Norris wished he had spent more time with Lee and missed him. Chuck Norris stayed close to the Lee family and felt proud of Bruce's son, Brandon. Despite facing challenges like racism and media pressure, Brandon was like a son to Norris and was proud of him. Norris was heartbroken upon hearing about Brandon's death and even attended his funeral. The legend, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is easily one of the most famous people of our time, but many people don't know much about his early life. He was actually born Lee Junfan. His dad, Lee Hoi Chuan, was a Cantonese opera singer in Hong Kong, while his mom, Grace Ho, was from Shanghai and had mixed Eurasian heritage. In December 1939, Bruce's parents traveled to California for an opera tour in Chinatown, San Francisco. Bruce was born there on November 27, 1940, making him a U.S. citizen under the country's citizenship laws. But when he was just 4 months old, in April 1941, the family went back to Hong Kong. Life wasn't easy for the Lees in those years. Japan attacked Hong Kong in December 1941, and the city was under Japanese rule for the next 4 years during World War II. Bruce's mom's side of the family also had a mix of backgrounds. Her dad was Cantonese, her mom was English, and her great-uncle, Robert Ho Tung, was a businessman in Hong Kong with Dutch, Jewish, and Cantonese roots. Bruce got into the movie scene when he was super young and even starred in a few films as a kid, all thanks to his father's involvement in the entertainment industry. In his first flick, Golden Gate Girl, he played a baby carried onto the stage. His stage name was Lee the Little Dragon because he was born in the year of the dragon according to the Chinese zodiac. At just 9, he acted alongside his dad in The Kid in 1950, playing the lead role of Kid Chung from a comic book. By the time he was 18, he'd been in 20 films. He started school at Tak Sun School and later went to Catholic La Salle College when he was 12. In 1956, he switched to St. Francis Xavier's College because he was not doing well in school and maybe had some bad behavior. There, he met brother Edward Muss, who coached the boxing team. After some street fights, his parents decided he needed to learn martial arts. In 1953, his friend William Chung introduced him to IP Man, but he was turned down because the rule was not to teach non-Chinese. Lee's mixed background made it tough, but Chung helped him get in. He trained in Wing Chun with IP Man and tried to keep away from street fights. Some students didn't want to train with him because he wasn't fully Chinese. But Lee stayed focused and trained with IP Man, William Chung, and Wang Shun Leung. In 1958, Lee won a boxing tournament in Hong Kong and became the Cha-Cha champ in the Crown Colony Cha-Cha Championship. During his teenage years, Bruce Lee got into more fights, even beating the son of a notorious triad family. In 1958, when students from a rival martial arts school challenged Bruce's Wing Chun school, he fought on a rooftop. After someone threw a cheap shot at him, Bruce fought back so fiercely that he knocked out one of the guy's teeth. This led to the boy's parents complaining to the police. Bruce's mom had to sign a paper at the police station, promising to take full responsibility for Bruce if they let him go. She didn't tell Bruce's dad about it, but suggested that Bruce return to the U.S. to claim citizenship when he turned 18. Bruce's dad agreed since Bruce's future in Hong Kong looked low. A police detective even warned Bruce's dad, saying, "Your son's been getting into too many fights at school. If he gets into one more, I might have to arrest him." In April 1959, Bruce's parents decided to send him to live with his sister in San Francisco. Then he moved to Seattle to finish high school. He worked at a restaurant owned by a family friend, Ruby Chow. Bruce's brother Peter joined him briefly in Seattle before heading to college in Minnesota. Later in 1959, Bruce started teaching martial arts, calling his style Junfan Gung Fu, a blend of Wing Chun. He taught friends in Seattle, starting with Jesse Glover, who knew judo. Taki Kimura became Bruce's first assistant instructor and continued teaching Bruce's techniques after Bruce passed away. Bruce opened his first martial arts school in Seattle, the Lee Junfan Gung Fu Institute. Lee graduated from Edison Technical School on Capitol Hill in Seattle. Later, in March 1961, he started at the University of Washington, where he studied various subjects like dramatic arts, philosophy, and psychology, although his official major was drama, not philosophy, as some people believed. However, Lee left the university in early 1964 and moved to Oakland to live with James Yim Lee, a well-known martial artist. Together, they opened the second Junfan martial arts studio in Oakland. There, Lee met Ed Parker, an American martial artist, and showed off his incredible skills at the 1964 Long Beach International Karate Championships. At the event, Lee amazed everyone by performing two-finger push-ups and the famous one-inch punch. During this time, Lee also met Taekwondo master Jun Gu Ri, and they became friends, sharing their martial arts knowledge. In 1964, Lee had a famous showdown in Oakland's Chinatown with Wong Jackman, a master of various martial arts. The match was controversial, as it was said to determine whether Lee could continue teaching non-Chinese students. Wong Jackman denied that the fight was about race or teaching restrictions. He claimed it started after Bruce Lee boasted at a Chinatown theater, saying he could beat anyone in San Francisco. Lee's confidence didn't scare Wong, who challenged him to a fight. According to Wong, the match lasted 20 to 25 minutes. He said Lee attacked aggressively, even aiming for his eyes. Wong defended himself using tactics hidden in his sleeves. Some say Lee's exhaustion ended the fight, but it was not a clear victory. However, Bruce Lee, Linda Lee Cadwell, and James Yim Lee said it only lasted 3 minutes, with Lee winning decisively. Cadwell remembered Lee getting the challenger on the ground and asking him to give up. After the fight, Lee hinted at his victory in an interview. Wong then wrote about the match in a local newspaper, offering a rematch if Lee wasn't satisfied. Lee didn't respond, despite his reputation for reacting strongly to challenges. While Lee initially focused on martial arts rather than a film career, an exhibition in Long Beach caught the attention of television producer William Dozier. This led to an audition for a role in Number One Son, though the show never happened. Still, Dozier saw potential in Lee. From 1966 to 1967, Bruce Lee starred as Kato alongside Van Williams in The Green Hornet, a TV series based on a radio series that ran for 1 season and featured Lee's martial arts skills. Lee and Williams even made appearances in Batman episodes. The Green Hornet introduced Bruce Lee to American audiences and showcased Asian martial arts to a wide audience. However, there were challenges. The director wanted Lee to fight in the typical American style, but Lee insisted on using his expertise. He was so fast, they had to slow the footage to capture his moves. During filming, Lee became friends with Gene LaBelle, a stuntman on the show. They trained together and shared their martial arts knowledge. After the show ended, Lee wrote to William Dozier, thanking him for kickstarting his career in showbiz. In 1967, Lee appeared in an episode of Ironside. After The Green Hornet, Lee felt he needed to develop his martial arts further. He opened his institute and created Jeet Kun Do in 1967. The inspiration came partly from his tough fight with Wong Jackman, during which Lee realized traditional martial arts had limitations. He believed in practical, flexible, and efficient techniques, incorporating various training methods like weightlifting, running, and stretching, and always adapting to improve. During this time, 2 of Lee's students were Hollywood writer Sterling Silliphant and actor James Coburn. Together, they collaborated on a movie script called The Silent Flute in 1969, even traveling to India for location scouting. Although the film didn't happen then, Circle of Iron, released in 1978, was based on the same story. In 2010, there were plans to make a movie based on the original script. In 1969, Lee had a small role in the film Marlowe, written by Silliphant. In it, he played a tough guy hired to intimidate Detective Philip Marlowe, played by James Garner. Lee also worked as a karate advisor for The Wrecking Crew, a spy comedy movie. That year, he appeared in 1 episode each of Here Come the Brides and Blondie. In 1970, Lee choreographed the fight scenes for A Walk in the Spring Rain, starring Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn, another project penned by Silliphant. Then, in 1971, Lee appeared in 4 episodes of the TV series Longstreet, written by Silliphant. He portrayed Lee Tsung, the martial arts teacher of the main character, Mike Longstreet, played by James Franciscus. Lee's martial arts wisdom was woven into the storyline. Lee had pitched his TV series idea in 1971, initially named The Warrior, as shared by Lee himself and later confirmed by Linda Lee Cadwell. Both Paramount and Warner Brothers were interested but wanted a more modern twist, while Lee preferred a Western theme, as he revealed on The Pierre Berton Show in December 1971. However, Lee's concept was reimagined and retitled Kung Fu by Warner Brothers, with no credit given to Lee. Warner Brothers claimed they had been developing a similar idea since 1969, created by Ed Spielman and Howard Friedlander, as noted by Lee's biographer Matthew Polly. They cited Lee's accent as the reason for not casting him, but some, like Fred Weintraub, attribute it to his ethnicity. The role of the Shaolin monk in the Wild West went to David Carradine, who wasn't initially a martial artist. In an interview, Lee understood Warner Brothers' concerns about casting and acknowledged the business risks involved. He compared the situation to an American star going to Hong Kong and facing similar acceptance challenges. Fred Weintraub suggested that Lee return to Hong Kong and create a feature film to impress Hollywood executives. Not satisfied with his minor roles in the U.S., Lee returned to Hong Kong. He was surprised that the Green Hornet was a hit there, often referred to as the Kato Show, making him a recognized star. After negotiations with Shaw Brothers Studio and Golden Harvest, Lee signed a contract to star in 2 films produced by Golden Harvest. Lee's first leading role in The Big Boss became a massive success in Asia, propelling him to superstardom. He followed up with Fist of Fury, breaking box office records set by The Big Boss. After completing his initial contract, Lee struck a new deal with Golden Harvest. He later co-founded Concord Production Inc. with Chow. For his third film, The Way of the Dragon, Lee took full control as writer, director, star, and fight choreographer. In this movie, Lee famously faces off against Chuck Norris, a showdown hailed as one of the greatest fight scenes in martial arts and film history. In 1972, Lee began filming Game of Death with Golden Harvest, including a memorable fight scene with basketball star Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. However, production halted when Warner Brothers offered Lee the chance to star in Enter the Dragon, a joint venture with Concord, Golden Harvest, and Warner Brothers. The filming commenced in Hong Kong and concluded in April 1973. During filming, another production company falsely promoted Lee as the lead in Fist of Unicorn, leading to legal issues. Despite this, Lee retained his friendship with Unicorn Chan. Tragically, Lee passed away just days before Enter the Dragon's release on July 26, 1973. Enter the Dragon became a global hit, solidifying Lee's status as a martial arts icon. It was made for $850,000 in 1973. It grossed over $400 million worldwide. The film sparked a martial arts craze, reflected in popular songs like Kung Fu Fighting and various TV shows. Legacy. Some experts and martial artists believe that Lee is the most influential martial artist of all time. He's seen as a big icon of the 1900s who connected East and West. Time magazine even included Lee among the 100 most important people of the 20th century. Many books have been written about Lee's life, with one biography selling over 4 million copies by 1988. Lee played a big part in starting the Kung Fu craze in the 1970s. He first introduced Kung Fu to the West with shows like The Green Hornet and Kung Fu. After that, Hong Kong martial arts movies became really popular in 1973, inspiring many Western martial arts movies and TV shows in the following decades. This craze also helped kickstart the careers of stars like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, and Chuck Norris. Enter the Dragon is often called one of the most important action movies ever made. It's still referenced in many media today, and its characters and storylines have had a big impact. The film's portrayal of different cultures was particularly groundbreaking. Many action filmmakers, both in Hong Kong and Hollywood, say Bruce Lee inspired them. Directors like Jackie Chan and John Woo in Hong Kong and Quentin Tarantino and Brett Ratner in Hollywood all credit Lee for influencing their work. Kun Do is often said to have set the stage for modern mixed martial arts. Bruce Lee spread the idea of mixed martial arts in the West through his Kun Do system. He believed that the best fighters aren't limited to just one style, like boxing or karate, but can adapt to any situation and create their own style. In 2004, Dana White, the founder of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, called Lee the father of mixed martial arts. He said Lee's way of training and fighting, taking bits from different styles and discarding what doesn't work, was the perfect approach. Lee's influence led many people to practice martial arts, including athletes like Sugar Ray Leonard and Manny Pacquiao, who admired Lee's skills and adopted some of his techniques. Even UFC champion Conor McGregor sees himself in Bruce Lee and thinks Lee would have been a UFC champ today. Lee's impact extended to kickboxing tournaments in the 70s, thanks to Joe Louis and Benny Urquidez, and American Taekwondo through Jungu Rhee. Rhee taught Lee's techniques to heavyweight boxing champ Muhammad Ali, who used them to win fights. Mike Tyson, another heavyweight champ, said everyone wanted to be like Bruce Lee in the 70s. In the UFC, fighters like John Jones, Uriah Hall, and Anderson Silva see Lee as a role model. Lee's innovative moves, like the oblique kick to the knee, are still used today, showing how much of an influence he had on martial arts. Many UFC fighters consider Lee the godfather of MMA, showing the lasting impact of his legacy. Lee is celebrated for transforming the portrayal of Asians in American movies. He shattered Asian stereotypes, like the idea of Asian men being weak or submissive. Instead, he showed that Asian men could be tough, powerful, and attractive, according to University of Michigan lecturer Hae Seong Chung. Lee's fame also created a new stereotype: the martial artist. In North America, his movies initially drew large crowds from Black, Asian, and Hispanic communities. Among Black audiences, Lee was almost as popular as heavyweight boxer Muhammad Ali in the 70s. As he gained mainstream recognition, Lee stood out as a rare non-white movie star in Hollywood, which was dominated by white actors back then. Rapper L. Cool J recalls seeing Lee on the big screen in the 1970s, the first time many non-white American kids like himself had a non-white hero to look up to. Many famous people in entertainment and sports say Bruce Lee greatly influenced their work. Martial arts actors like Jackie Chan and Donnie Yen, bodybuilder actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, comedians like Eddie Murphy and Eddie Griffin, and musicians such as Steve Aoki and Rohan Marley all admire Lee's impact. Rappers like LL Cool J and Wu-Tang Clan's RZA, bands like Gorillaz, and comedians like W. Kamau Bell and Margaret Cho also credit Lee for inspiring them. Even basketball players like Stephen Curry, skaters like Tony Hawk, and footballer Kyler Murray look up to Lee. Comic book legend Stan Lee, the founder of Marvel Comics, saw Lee as a real-life superhero. After Lee passed away, Marvel created characters like Shang-Chi, Iron Fist, and the comic series The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, all inspired by Lee's legacy. Stan Lee believes any martial artist character in comics owes something to Bruce Lee. In the 1970s, Lee's influence even reached the world of breakdancing. Lee's Kung Fu inspired groups like the Rocksteady Crew, which led to iconic dance moves like the windmill. Lee's films left a big mark on Hindi masala films in India. Movies like Diwar incorporated fight scenes inspired by Lee's Hong Kong martial arts films, which were popular in India during the 70s and 90s. Indian star Amir Khan remembers how almost every home in Bombay had a Bruce Lee poster in the 70s. In Japan, manga and anime series like Fist of the North Star and Dragon Ball were inspired by Lee's movies like Enter the Dragon. These series, in turn, shaped the trends of popular manga and anime from the 1980s onwards. Even characters like Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop are seen practicing Jeet Kune Do and quoting Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's movies, Game of Death and Enter the Dragon, laid the groundwork for video game styles such as beat-them-up action and fighting games. The first beat-them-up game, Kung Fu Master, was inspired by Lee's Game of Death. Street Fighter, a popular video game franchise, took cues from Enter the Dragon, featuring an international fighting tournament with characters of diverse backgrounds and fighting styles. Almost every major fighting game since then has had a character inspired by Bruce Lee. In the EA Sports UFC, released in April 2014, Lee was included as a playable character across different weight classes. In France, the Yamakasi Group credited Bruce Lee's martial arts philosophy, alongside Jackie Chan's acrobatics, with having a major influence on the development of parkour in the 1990s. They even considered Lee the unofficial president of their group. The Legend of Bruce Lee, a Chinese TV drama series based on Lee's life, attracted over 400 million viewers in China, making it the most-watched Chinese TV drama series ever by 2018. In November 2022, It was announced that Taiwanese filmmaker Ang Lee would direct a biopic about Bruce Lee. Ang Lee's son, Mason Lee, was chosen to play the lead role, and Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, would produce the film. In 2024, a proposal to erect a statue of Bruce Lee in San Francisco was made. Shannon Lee supports the idea, highlighting the city's significance in their family's legacy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.